Hello and welcome back to the Baggies Podcast YouTube channel, where of course we're giving you all the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. We're back again today with another video for you. We're going to be chatting today and doing a bit of an analysis, I suppose, of Valerien Ismael's reign so far at West Bromwich Albion. Of course, been a lot of debate on social media about whether he's done a good job, a bad job, whether things are going to turn around with the potential with the signing, obviously, of Daryl DK, whether things are going to potentially turn around with that. And whether he's sort of the man that the Albion fans are really wanting at the helm of West Bromwich Albion at the moment. I'm going to be taking a look at sort of more of the stats-based stuff and having a look at kind of the facts, really, of his reign so far. Has he done a good job in certain areas? What areas has he succeeded in managing Albion? And what areas has he sort of not done as well as most fans would have thought? I'm going to be taking a look at several different categories, sort of looking at how Albion have done in comparison to the rest of the league, ranking them. And of course, I've done a bit of fact-finding myself about some of these as well. So yeah, if you're new around here, be sure to subscribe if you want more content like this. If you enjoyed this style of video, make sure to let me know in the comment section below. Let me know how you feel about Valerien Ismael. Do you feel like he's doing a very good job at the Hawthorns, or do you feel like he's not really the man for you? Let me know down in the comments. I'm all ears for you, and let me know if you enjoyed this style of video. Make sure you subscribe. Nearly 1,000 subscribers, about 40 to go now, I think, last time I checked. So yeah, keep clicking that subscribe button. It's completely free, and make sure you get all the latest Albion content into your YouTube inbox. So let's get straight into this video, where we'll be analysing Valerien Ismael's time at West Bromwich Albion. Let's start off with the facts then of Valerien Ismael's reign so far. So he was appointed, of course, in June of 2021. A 4-year deal in the end from Barnsley after paying £2 million in compensation fees. He's played 28 competitive games so far, of course, as well. Managed 28 competitive games so far for Albion. That's 26 league games and 2 cup games as well. Obviously out in the third round of both of those, I think. So yeah, let's have a little bit of a chat about sort of what we expected from him at the start. Let's have a look at sort of what the ideas were. I made several videos, I think, back at the start of his reign, and he's talked about what we could expect, the stats from his season at Barnsley, how he could line up with Albion, how he could sort of what he could bring to the table, what sort of style of play we were getting. I did a podcast episode the day after he was appointed, so yeah, those were really popular, and I think that's what may have brought a lot of you to my channel and to the podcast. So we expected this high tempo, this erratic style of football that not only outcompetes but also sort of out physiques most teams at every game. That's what we were kind of expecting. We were expecting this sort of dogged style of football that is very, very structurally supported, but also has an element of chaos really in it. That's what we were kind of expecting at the start of his reign. And have we got that? I'd probably say that some of the games we have, some of the games we haven't. I think there's been games this season where, if anything, the football hasn't been chaotic enough. It's been too walking pace and too slow and too lethargic at times. But there has been games, I look back to the start of the season, where it has been completely barbaric. This style of football, end-to-end basketball match, that kind of thing. So yeah, that was what we were really expecting, and I feel like we have got it in some aspects, but we haven't ended up seeing that at Albion with Valerien Ismael in most games this season. I think there's been real sprinklings of it, but not quite enough of it. But in terms of how it's going, let's have a look at how it's sort of progressed so far. I'll show you some diagrams and stats, of course, as we go through the video. But if we start off by talking about how it's going, we're 5th in the league at the time of recording. That is Tuesday the 18th at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So yeah, we're currently 5th at the time of recording, currently on 42 points. We're only 1 point inside the playoffs. However, a sizable 7 points away from the top 2 as well. Fair to say that this isn't where Albion wants to be at this time. This isn't where the club would want us to be. They want us to be pushing and really up the. I think that Fulham and Bournemouth are a lot better sides. I think they've got better squads than West Brom. But I feel like the gap between us isn't quite how the Albion's hierarchy would perhaps want it. I think they want to see them really squeezing that gap and perhaps being just where Blackburn are, level on points with both those sides and really pushing to get into those top 2 spaces. That's where I think they want to be, and that is currently where they are not. So Yeah, let's take a look. Let's have a little dive into how we sort of see it at the moment and how the season's gone in terms of a stat point of view. I've picked out four particular areas so far, which is goals. Of course, that's a big part of Albion's game and how we haven't really shown that and how we haven't really scored enough goals to kind of keep up with those two sides. Passing, I think, is something that really needs to be looked at. Has the passing been up to scratch, or has it been more erratic and more dangerous as we expected? I looked at aerial stats. I think was something that really took my mind really for Albion. I feel like it's something that Albion should really take note of, because obviously we expected lots of balls into the air, and if we look at the players that we've been playing the balls up into the air to, I think that would be quite an interesting stat area to look at. I've also taken a little bit of a look at the impact from substitutions, because obviously it's sort of a bit of a running thing that Albion have a substitution on a particular minute, which is 60 minutes. And let's have a look at. I've counted up really how many substitute appearances have done so well and how many substitute appearances have not done so well. So yeah, there's a bit of a mix of stats really for you guys to take a look at in this video, and hopefully they provide something a little bit different for you. But if we start by looking at a little bit of goals, because of course things haven't gone very well in terms of a goal scoring output for Albion. They've scored 31 goals this season, which isn't anywhere near as many as the teams above them, or actually some of the teams below them. I mean, Fulham are on 64 goals. Albion, they've over doubled Albion's goal tally. Yes, you can ask a lot of Mitrovic for that and how he's sort of improved Fulham and kind of come in and been their main scorer. That is fair enough. You can of course point it towards that. But then if you look at how Albion have been doing in terms of their goal scoring, it's not been quite good enough in front of goal, and how they've been sort of underperforming quite significantly. So Fulham, I always point to their striking their striking influences and how they've done, but even Bournemouth and Blackburn are at least 10 goals ahead of us. So what I like to look at is a table from the website Experimental 361. I will leave a link down in the description for that if you want to check that out. And this is how sort of expected goals works. And I mean, I know people aren't a fan of that stat. I personally am a fan of that stat. I don't think it tells you everything you need to know. I think it does shade a bit of over the top of some poor performances, but I do think in large parts it is very effective and very useful. So in terms of how they've done, in terms of how Albion have done in terms of their expected goals and where they sort of should be in the league, this Experimental 361 really does help to highlight where they should be, and they should be second. That is what this diagram says. They should be 3 places above where they are. Fulham should be top, but shouldn't perhaps be scoring as many goals as they perhaps have. So in terms of Albion, they should have had 8 more victories if it was down to expected goals. So they sort of totter. It's sort of like a fair league table. If the games had gone how XG said they should, or XG conceded should have, how should they have performed? So Albion have got, of course, those 31 goals, but they should have 45.8 more goals than they have before. So yeah, they should have had 14.8 more goals. That is a big difference, and that can that would pick you up victories in 14 more games this season. I don't think Albion have lost and drawn that many, but it could have picked you up victories in 14 more games this season, which nearly all of Albion's draws and defeats. So you've got that sort of margin, and you've got the away goals as well, the goals that you've given away. And that is 21.9, which is actually more than expected. We've conceded 20 goals. We should have conceded nearly 22. So, if Albion were to go off this table, they should be second, and they should have 61 points, and they should also have a gap of 12 points between themselves and Middlesbrough, who should be in 3rd place. So they finishing on the whole is probably Albion's biggest problem this season. You can take away the performances. I know that some of the performances have been pretty bad, but if you take away those performances, this sort of metric, is what to look at. Some of the performances have been pretty awful, and Albion haven't deserved to win the games. But some of the games, however, Albion have deserved to win, and I think that a lot of the bad performances have shaded over that. And to be honest, the expected goals have been showing that, and it shows that Albion needed that finisher to kind of come in and show exactly what exactly what they need to do. So that's kind of what I wanted to point out with goals, because they're not doing very well in terms of those. Passing, I think, is another thing that's very important in terms of how Ismael's side have sort of come and gone this season. There's been times where we've played a more patient, shorter passing games against teams that want to camp out, especially at home. So I look at the game against Wigan. They're a side that wanted to camp out and hit on the break. That was a game that finished 1-1 in the end, with 2 goals, I think, from set pieces, and ended up causing the issues for Albion, to be honest. But passing, the inaccurate short passing, I've looked at some sort of inaccuracies among each type of pass that we've made. So short passes, they tend to be a sort of between 5 and 10 yard passes. Long balls tend to be anything really over that, and then inaccurate crosses, of course, are ones that come from wide areas. So inaccurate short passes, we have 74.3 of those per game. Obviously, you'll be seeing the diagrams coming up on your board, on your screen. Sorry. Now, 74.3 passes are given away or inaccurate per game. That is the worst in the league, or top in the league, I suppose, but it is the worst value. We give away the most short passes in the league. We're above Barnsley, we're above Cardiff, we're above Millwall, we're above Coventry in those positions. So we give away the most short passes in the game. Either that says we have loads of possession, which we don't, or it says that Albion's players are incapable of passing that good distance between themselves. Obviously, 74.3 short passes given away per game is pretty shocking, to be honest. That's the worst in the league, of course. Inaccurate long balls with 44.4 given away per game, which is interesting, of course. That's 6th in the league. That's not quite as bad, but it's still pretty awful. That is something that we make a lot of. We make a lot of long balls, and that is something that's interesting. We're not anywhere near the top in terms of how many passes we make, or how many passes we kind of succeed in. So that's the 6th worst, 18th in the league really for that one, or 6th most passes given away. So the passing has just not really been good enough either. Inaccurate crosses as well is something I wanted to highlight, because obviously we've seen that Albion's crosses are really coming in steroids, to be honest. So many crosses coming in from the wide areas, but to who? You're looking at the front three of Dean Garner, Robinson, Grant, Phillips, sometimes Hugill. There's lots of crosses coming into those players. Inaccurate crosses, we have 20.8 inaccurate crosses per game on average. That's the worst in the league, 24th or 1st for the most crosses that are inaccurate per game. That is pretty shocking. I feel like Ismael's football is kind of a bit hopeful. I think there's a lot of balls that are pumped forward in the hope that it will knock on, or in the hope that it will come down to somebody. And yeah, I feel like that kind of proves it. There's a real sort of cranking up of the notch of Ismael's football every time we lose, or every time we look like we're going to lose. And it just means we do more of the same, really, or we end up doing more short passes, more long balls, more crosses. And that's how we can see from that sort of metric that we do give away a lot of those passes and long crosses as well. Yeah, let's look at in the air as well, because this is something I wanted to take a peek at. We clearly get involved in a lot of aerial duels, whether that be won or lost. We clearly end up in plenty of those. So aerials lost, we end up with 26.5 per game. That leaves us 2nd in the league. So, that is a lot of aerials lost. That is the second most in the league. So that's pretty shameful as well. Obviously, we get into more than most teams, to be honest. There's only people like Cardiff and Millwall who kind of top us in those stats. But we clearly get into a lot of those. So we're kind of just lumping the ball forward, hoping somebody gets on the end of it. But we end up losing a lot of those aerials. 29 per game as well for aerials won. So we're balanced at them. We win more or less as many as we lose, to be honest, slightly more in the won section with 3rd place. There's evidently a lot of duels entered this season so far. So lots of aerial duels being sort of clattered about. And you see that a lot. A lot of the football we play is in the air. And we try not to sort of do it so often, but it is the case. Two of our centre backs have won the most aerial duels on average per game. So you've got Kyle Bartley, who won who's top of the Championship aerials won charts with 7.3 aerials won per game. That's 1st in the league for Kyle Bartley, obviously ever present when fit in Albion's lineup. And then Dara O'Shea, somebody who's only had a sort of small data set for that particular stat, with 6.8 aerials won per game. That means he's in 4th place. So yeah, we're clearly quite dominant in the air, but also losing our fair share of those as well. So yeah, disappointing really to see that the ball's being played so often in the air and kind of losing quite a lot of them, but winning the fair few as well kind of backs up that it is a little bit hit and hope, to be honest. And another thing, the final sort of thing I wanted to check through is the impact from substitutions, which I think is particularly amazing. This is probably the most amazing stat I found on this particular topic. This is one I went and searched myself. So Valerien Ismael, of course, known for making his 60th minute substitutions. He's made 76 so far this season in all competitions in the games that he's managed. So that is the competitive games. He's managed 28 games so far for Albion. He's made 76 substitutions in those, so nearly uses 3 in each one of those. He has only gained 5 goal contributions from all of those substitutions. So 4 assists and only 1 goal scorer from that. So yeah, that is quite worrying. So you look at the assists from those substitutions. So there were 2 assists from Callum Robinson against QPR. Obviously, remember that game 2-1 at the Hawthorns. He assisted both of Carl Grant's goals. 1 from Grady Diangana against Cardiff. That was an assist for him as he came off the bench. Then also 1 from Carl Bartley against Middlesbrough, where he came off the bench for an injured Matt Clark after only 11 minutes to head over to Diangana, who scored. But the 1 goal from these subs came from Matt Phillips against Cardiff City when he came on, I think, at half-time for that game, in that 4-0 victory. So 1 goal in 76 substitutions, I think that is pretty awful. I mean, this impact and the sort of like-for-like substitutions have not worked. There are not enough goals coming off that bench, and it kind of leaves you down to thinking that the best lineups on the pitch most of the time, I do feel for Ismael, and I do think the best team he can play is always playing. But I think on the bench there is just not enough firepower coming off it. Clearly, these substitutions aren't working, and Ismael's reign so far has been kind of tainted by that 60-minute substitution. I think a lot of fans have sort of had enough of it. But there's so many stats that we've seen there that prove that some parts are perhaps down to Ismael. So you look at the passing, the way that he's trying to play leaves us with so many inaccurate passes. It's just ridiculous. I mean, we can't keep the ball. The aerials won. We're clearly trying to create a hectic style of play, but are we strong enough in the air going forward? We're clearly strong enough in the air when it comes back to us with Carl Bartley and Dara O'Shea averaging so many of those headers. But when you win the ball in that final third, you're not quite as good at that. And I feel like that's quite worrying. And I feel like when you're lumping the ball up to Robinson, Diangana, Grant, those sorts of players, it's not going to work. And the expected goals, I don't think that can be held down to Ismael. I feel like that's something that perhaps is masking a little bit of these other potential factors that have done so far. The expected goals is a big thing. Daryl DK, you hope, can sort that out, but there's been a lack of creativity so far, over the past few games for Albion, and it's not been creating many clear-cut chances. But that's all the analysis really I could sort of pick out, and it just shows that there's so many stats that perhaps we're papering over with those XG stats, but clearly plenty more optimism really from the XG stats that we could potentially get more goals than we are. But at the moment, it's not really going too well for Ismael with so many games not won so far this season. But yeah, 5th in the league, not too far away from the automatic promotion spots, but still a long way to go. You'd hope that we can pick up a run of form and try and get into the automatic promotion positions, but it's not going too well so far. But that just brings me to the end of this analysing Valerien Ismael's reign at West Bromwich Albion video. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed. Comment your thoughts down below. Let me know how you feel about Ismael. Do you feel he's done well? Do you feel like it's not really working? Drop your comments down below. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe for more. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.